Yeah, so my name is Rishika Singh, and I work at Google currently as a solutions consultant. And it's a kind of like a sub team of the Google Assistant organization in Google. So I was pre med, and I really enjoyed a lot of the classes I was taking. The material was interesting to me, and I think I realized that um, there's certain parts of what I was, learning in my classes. A lot of it stemming from my biomedical research minor because I was able to, try to understand research papers, try to do my own research as well as an undergrad student. That really got me into just the entire idea of problem solving, having something out there that is an unknown and trying to figure out how to solve it. I think that was just really fascinating to me, and I think that exists in medicine. If you're trying to figure out what's wrong with a patient, that's something that's there. But I realized that I wanted to apply that perhaps in a separate field than just medicine, and try to see if that can sort of transfer over to a different area, a different field. And so after finishing my undergrad, I took a couple gap years, essentially, initially just trying to figure out, what can I do now? What skills are transferable? Um, and then, technology, computers, all of that was something that I was always interested in, very intrigued by. I had some exposure to it in high school, but never took any formal programming classes, nothing like that. And I was always kind of curious about it. So I started just doing some like free online classes because there's like, a ton out there that exist. And then I was like, I think this is, pretty interesting. Started out with Python, kind of a nice like entryway language. And then from there, I took more formal classes into like Java and C++. And this was at kind of the local community college back home for me. And then I took a couple more classes at the university. And then I decided, I think this is something that I want to pursue. And so I decided to, maybe let me get kind of like a more formal education in it. So from there, I essentially decided to apply for a master's program. And in order to do that, I had to have a bunch of coursework to essentially just be, considered when I was applying. So kind of just had to tick off all the courses, including, data structures, algorithms, things like that. And then that's kind of my transition there. Yeah, so about 4 years ago, at the like Google's I/O conference, which is like one of the big kind of public-facing conferences, the CEO kind of first introduced Duplex, which is kind of this NLP, natural language processing, this technology, this bot that essentially, I'm not sure if people have used this before, but if you go to Google Maps and like look up like a restaurant or a business, there's an option to make a reservation through Google Maps directly. So if you click the button, that's instead of going to like call or something, you can just hit reserve, and it'll pop up that Google Assistant will contact the restaurant for you. You specify the party size, the time and day, and essentially a bot will call the restaurant, have a full-on conversation with the restaurant, and the whole point is to make it sound very human-like. Obviously, there is a disclaimer at the beginning that this is a bot, it's not a real person contacting the restaurant, just so the restaurant is not being they don't they're fully aware of who they're speaking to. um, and so that's kind of like the initial application of this, and I think that was really interesting when it was first introduced, and essentially now it's just expanding it to more and more use cases, trying to expand it internationally. So there's a lot of kind of development going on internally. So a lot of features are trying to kind of add on to that. So that's what was really interesting to me, because there's a lot of innovation around it, and I think there's a lot of possibilities. Um, yeah, it was definitely something I considered, because a lot of my friends that I made through my program, they were continuing on to get their PhDs. But I think in the moment for me, I wanted to start just working in the real world and working on real problems kind of as soon as possible. And I think that was kind of just driving me towards just, trying to get a summer internship and then, working somewhere right after my master's. And a lot of my friends who were in the master's program with me that finished with me kind of had that same mindset. Not to say I can never go back and continue and get the PhD. I think PhDs can be challenging because you have to find an unsolved research problem, which is difficult, and then actually having to solve it. You kind of have to do both sides of it. So that can get pretty tricky. But definitely not off the table for me. But I think so far I've enjoyed the experience I've gained from working in the industry. And I think just already having, worked at my second company now and just kind of getting that exposure, working with different people. Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of would be like my ideal thing I'm working on is some kind of application of ML or AI to healthcare, to medicine. I think healthcare and medicine is a field that is a slightly outdated in terms of technology and what they're adopting. Because I've volunteered in hospitals, I've worked with doctors, and I've seen there's a lot of resistance to new technologies. But I think, which I know I totally get if it hasn't been around for generations for doctors, but I think technology can kind of uncover a lot of capabilities. Like you have all this data, you can really do a lot with it. So I think that's kind of would be like my ideal thing that I'm working on is some kind of application of technology to medicine. I think I'm hoping that things are kind of headed in that direction just in general. I think it's kind of one of the up and coming like fields that people are trying to kind of push technology into, but I think it might take some time. Not too much. It's mostly been Python for me. So in my previous job, even for that, it was mostly some like scripting that was in Python, and then if I had to choose between the two, I've just had more kind of industry experience working in Python, and just more of my classes were also in Python, because most of the time for any like ML or AI like algorithm or something that you're writing up, most of the time that is written in Python. So that's kind of what I primarily use. Java was mostly for me in just like the programming classes I was taking before my master's when I was preparing for it. That was kind of like my last real exposure to it. Mostly really just Python. My current role is not necessarily like too heavy on the coding side. It's more trying to think about how to like design the NLP bot and kind of what goes into that, and trying to refine and improve it. So we kind of have like I'm kind of sitting in a somewhat of a cross-functional role where there's engineers that's their primary task is to do the actual coding and engineering of the bot, and then I'm kind of sitting between them and the product side of things, and kind of being like that communication in between. Yeah, so in high school, I was actually part of this engineering academy that we had, and it was like a 4-year program where it was just like 30 of us, for per class. And so every year you kind of take like a kind of an engineering oriented class. So we had like physics, we took some kind of like machining course, like working on trying to machine different parts and stuff, and then kind of the capstone project or something that you did in your senior year of high school was participate in the first robotics competition. So we had the 6 weeks to design and build and program the robot. And so I wasn't on the programming team when working on the robot, but I was friends with a lot of the programmers, and I used to kind of like see the work they did, and I was like, this is pretty cool. Like they can write out code, and like it makes the arm move, or just small things like that. I think it was really interesting to me. And then I think just engineering in a very high level, obviously I had the interest because throughout my 4 years I was taking classes in that. And then my specific role was more on the systems design side, so working on CAD, trying to design different parts and making sure they all kind of work together. So I think even in that, that's kind of just like working on a problem at a very high level. And I think just problem solving from even in high school, I think that's kind of uh, carried on with me. Um, yeah, I never like really thought about that. I think um, it's definitely been some time since I was in high school, but I feel like I could see some parallels in how when I was like on the team, working on the robot, like we had to communicate with like 6 or 7 other teams, and we're all working on a single robot, like a single unit of something. And I guess that kind of transfers over to like right now, where we have 3 other teams besides just where I sit. We're all working to like improve this bot, kind of like a virtual robot essentially. um, yeah, I could definitely see like some parallels in between that, where it's a lot of like teamwork and communication, and just like um, constant improvement of something that you're all kind of like working towards the same goal. um I mean, there is an imbalance. Definitely, I think even in my master's program, I would I would say women were in the minority for most of my classes. Most of the uh, and then in my previous company, I would say also in the minority, maybe just in my own team, I would say probably like a quarter were women. So it's definitely not 50-50, which obviously is like the ideal ratio to have. But something that was really cool about the engineering academy I was part of in high school was the requirement was that it had to be 50% men, 50% women. So it was like literally like a mandate of like, we're not gonna even go one number above or below. They want to keep it like perfectly equal. So I think that was kind of really, really unique about it. And um, obviously, I think in the real world outside of school, that might be difficult to achieve, because I think there's just an imbalance just naturally. But I think that idea of at least having the mentality of let's try to, try our best to get that, perfect balance. Um, Hopefully that can work in practice, but I don't know. Um, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I've ever had any, extremely negative experiences being a woman in, in CS, or women in tech. I have always been part of some kind of women in tech, women in CS organization. So whether that was in my master's program, we had like a women in science and engineering organization. Like ACM is a really big org. They had like a women's chapter for it, so I was involved in that. Um, and then in my previous company and my current company, we have internal groups essentially for like for women in tech. And so I think that's something that's really helped me, because it helps you kind of find a community of people where they kind of understand maybe what you're going through, what you face, and it really kind of provides that like safe space for that. um, yeah, fortunately, I haven't had anything that was very negative that I can remember. I would say that I've been luckily surrounded by people of all genders that were very open and welcoming. But not to say that situations like that are still happening. Yeah, I think obviously I was in high school, so I think like maybe my mentality when I was going through that versus like now is slightly different, just having had more like exposure to different um, different groups of people, all of that, like since high school. But I think when I was going through the program, I think it was just really nice to feel like encouraged and felt like you feel like you belong. Because I think that's like a really tough thing to kind of face is um, when you're in the real world, and I think just being anyone in a big company or anything, like the imposter syndrome is a big thing. I think no matter who you are, but I think if you're already in a minority, like gender wise, I think the imposter syndrome is even stronger. So I think when I was going through the program in high school, I didn't really feel that of like, oh, like what am I doing here, like I don't deserve to be here, that kind of thing. But then I think in the real world, that definitely, that sense is definitely there. And I think that's why, for me, being part of those like organizations that I mentioned kind of helped to feel like, okay, like I, have a place here. Um, I think there's so many, I don't know, I guess it's somewhat connected to problem solving, but to go off of that, like there's so much like potential of things that are like unknown, right? And like things that you can kind of create into a problem and then try to solve it. Like, and I think a lot of things maybe 15, 20 years ago we didn't realize could be, really solved by technology, or now have the potential to be solved by technology. And I know it's like sounds like super cliche that like technology is the future and all of that, but like I actually believe that because having gone through like when I was like a kid into high school to like now like seeing how technology has like developed, like having like a flip phone and like limited texting, all that kind of stuff, to now like an iPhone that has like these crazy capabilities and like a camera that's like so good, like that's only possible because of like advancements in technology. So I think like feeling that I'm part of that like community that's like driving innovation, I think that's just like a really exciting feeling. And I think it's just like really, I think it's kind of cool to just be surrounded by people that are, very intelligent and have like these crazy ideas. Like, what if we like took this and then made into this? And it's like, there's always like these like crazy startups that people are coming up with, and it's like, wow, like how did I not think that that could have been done? So I think that's pretty cool to me. Yeah, I would say that don't let anything hold you back. I think computer science is something that can be challenging at times because it's not, programming um, isn't easy at the end of the day. But I think what's great is that programming and computer science are becoming a lot more like accessible, I think, to like younger generations, because just compared to when I was in middle school, or even like younger, we didn't really have like too many programs of like trying to learn how to code and how to just like understand things at a higher level. And I think those programs are not starting to develop. So I think definitely like taking advantage of those programs that exist out there. And then I think finding some kind of community of if it's like your friends that are also interested in trying to learn more, trying to like be a buddy together and try to learn it together, or try to find like a mentor who maybe someone who's already in the field, or maybe someone who's just like a little bit older but has a bit more experience, and really trying to like lean on them as a mentor, because I've done that for sure. I've had so many mentors that really helped me as I was transitioning into computer science, because it is kind of scary to learn anything new. So I think just really leaning on people, finding that community, and don't let any kind of fear or anything really sink in. Yeah, I would say Python is a great place to start, because I think it's a really like a really readable programming language, where if you just read the code itself, you can kind of figure out what's going on. I think a lot of the um, language specific things to Python just, I think, make a lot of sense as you're just trying to understand a completely new language. Other languages can be a bit more, you know, uh, a bit I think just a bit trickier to understand if it's your first language. So I think Python is a great place for that, and I think Python is becoming a really popular language too. So I think like resources wise, there's like a ton out there. I'm sure even more from when I was first learning. Um, but yeah, one of the courses I took was, I think, MIT like releases their like old course material for free online, and you would think it would be like really like, you know, uh, really hard to understand because it's like MIT in this like big university, but like the professor was so good that I was actually like able to understand it pretty well. So that's kind of like a thing I always recommend to people. Um, I think, yeah, I think it's just, um, I think more and more people are breaking into tech from, other paths of life, other um, whatever your education is in. So I think even if you're not sure that you want to be a programmer, you want to be a developer, you want to be in technology, like it's okay if you don't have that figured out right now, because I didn't. I was in a very different field. Um, my previous team, like more than half of my coworkers came from entirely different degrees. Somebody was studying film, somebody was studying history, and we are all doing the same job. So I think it's really cool that technology is unique in that sense where you really can break into it, anytime that you want to. Of course, you have to have the motivation and that drive, but it's never too late if you want to pursue it at any time and just believe in yourself.